Hey everyone, welcome. It's Kenlyn. I'm doing a midweek review, and it's a little different because I have some huge things to report in around goddess convergence and some of the information that's being unearthed in our souls, in our hearts, that I believe is super important for you. And that's why I've called this transmission the Great Undoing. Now, that segues really well with this movement of Saturn. Well, let's just say lack of movement of Saturn. He's like moving very, very slow, or it's a she in Hellenistic astrology. So this ancient energy that is a personal planet that is known as the Lord of Karma is moving very slowly and will station retrograde on the 29th of June. So that's happening on the last day of goddess convergence. So here's what's happening. A new narrative is coming through. And I want to share this because it's important for everyone who feels that they are a frequency holder of the divine feminine. And that can be a man or a woman, the frequency holder of the divine feminine, because new codes are coming through, new sisterhood codes are coming through. And this was the intention of Goddess Convergence, that as we come together as the goddess, and remember the myth, the legend of the 1,000 goddesses that was told on day one, and I'll share a little bit about that too. But it's at that point that we can experience an evolutionary tectonic shift in our way of being. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what we've been praying for. So tune in with that part of your ear, the inner ear that hears the things in between, that hears the subtlety, that notices the call, how it resonates with your own internal call. This is a huge week. So we've done 2 days of Goddess Convergence at the time of this recording. We have 3 more days left. You can still get replays. You can always get replays, honestly. We did these activations so they would live in a vault and people could always have access to them, and we would add more to it. Because there is this feeling that we're living in a time that's both ancient and modern, that we're continuing on a lineage of the divine feminine from the matriarchy before it was a patriarchy, and then now we're into an integrated masculine and feminine. That's really what we're going for. It's this holy union. It's the Hieros Gamos. It's the thing that when the energy of the masculine meets the energy of the feminine, it's Eros. And that Eros is creative Shakti fire. It's what creates something new. And if you know me, we create from the new, we create from the void. We don't create from the past. So this is why the goddess is coming together here and now, because these are codes that have always been with us. And they're also in the collective. It's like morphogenetic. We are creating new codes as we're together. And the story of the 100th monkey. This is what's happening here. And the story is something like, when enough people are vibrating at a resonance, they're telling the same story, they're feeling the same things, and they name that, then it's happening in other places that never even heard it. It's like it's in the air. Whales know this. Whales sing the same song in different oceans. They're morphogenetic creatures. They're tapped in. Their subtle body is tapped into the collective. They are collective beings, and we're just learning to be collective beings, and we're being led by the feminine. Now, that's a really, really important point because that's what's coming through. So in a nutshell, there's a couple points that I really want to hit. So if you want to take notes, this would be a good time to take notes. First of all, we're in Sisterhood 3.0. And I'm just saying 3.0 as if there were 2 iterations before, but we're in the next iteration, the next evolution of sisterhood. That's very important because the way that we've done sisterhood, first of all, was pre-wound, like with all of our wounds and not even knowing it, but trying to figure our way out. Then we had the sisterhood wound really coming to the surface and a lot of people experiencing a healing. Remember, I did the activation, the transmission that's in YouTube videos around how we've received another level of the sisterhood of wounding, healing of the wounding. now that's so cool because in Goddess Convergence, that's what came out. The sisters were saying, I was asking them, what are you taking away? And a large percentage of women were saying what we're taking away is sisterhood matters. Sisterhood's important. We are not doing this alone anymore. And that's how we started Goddess Convergence. Honestly, you really should get the download yourself because the transmission, we started off with Maria Hartsong singing Coming Home, which is the feminine coming home. And then Claire Dubois, who is the founder of Tree Sisters, she came out of sabbatical. She came out of like her healing to give this transmission, and she was like on fire. And honestly, I've watched Claire over the years. She was in my first Divine Feminine Summit, and her spirituality, the sense of what's coming through her is just off the charts. It's expanding. You really want to get that activation, but I'm going to do my best to convey it. And then I'll leave you the link. And if you want to, you can. All right. So some of the takeaways, before I started, okay, I said Sisterhood 3.0. And before I started the activations on Monday or Tuesday, the day one, I really received the download of trust, flow, surrender, listen. Write those down. Trust, flow, surrender, listen. Those are not new, but when they become embodied, they're different than as a intellectual knowing, like, oh, I should trust. No, we are walking into the unknown. And this is what Claire Dubois brought through. And this is the number 3 point. Number 3 point is we are in the great undoing. Now, I think it's really helpful for our psyches to presence this, because when our psyches think that, and this is just a normal human default system, that the future looks like the past and that the rules of the past will apply to the future. I mean, that's just how our animal bodies evolved. That thinking is actually incorrect. And it's not only incorrect in terms of like a transpersonal spiritual thing, like we know that we break patterns of the past and we step into a new possibility and we create from that new possibility. But it's also just actually incorrect because we are in a whole different paradigm. We are in omni win-win or omni lose-lose. We're not in win-lose anymore. So that's important because people don't realize that we're not playing the game of win-lose. That the people who are in politics and in power still think we're playing win-lose. We have one nuclear war. We are lose-lose. Okay, that's the stakes. We've created the stakes so high. We have so much existential crises happening right now that we are in omni lose-lose. But in that crisis is a vast potential. And that is the potential of the divine feminine rising. That's probably one of the points that you should write down because, I mean, really, if we don't remember this, we're going to get lost in the drift. And either the drift is avoidant and we don't even want to think about it, or the drift is arguing against it. Like the people who are doing that, just like seriously. And then there's this whole thing of getting worried about it. So we have our drift responses to it. And then there's another way. And that other way is when you sync up in Goddess Convergence and 1,000 goddesses come together, which, by the way, we had over 1,100 people register for this. And again, we're going to keep going and keep going. So it's not over. You can keep going. We know that we're weaving a new future by our own awakening. So sisterhood's one of the awakenings. Now, the other thing we need to know is that we are in the great undoing. Now, here's what Claire Dubois said: the undoing of the great lie. The undoing of the great lie. Now, we know, if you've been following me, following other astrologers, Pluto has been unearthing all the lies in government, Capricorn, right? So, and Pluto's going to retrograde back into Capricorn. So who knows what else is going to be there. And so she said, this is the death of us individually and our individual lies. So we've each had to lie to ourselves, either denial of our gifts or lying to tell ourselves about we don't matter. I can't play a big role. I have to stay comfortable. I have to stay safe. Boy, the astrology is not going to be supporting that. And so she said that, I'm reading my notes, that we're purging that which veils us from our own soul nature. We're purging. We are purging it. So now we understand why all this freaking letting go, why all this loss. That's what's happening. So create that context, real, like get your arms around that context. It's going to support you moving forward in the great undoing. And one of the gifts of the feminine, and this is another point, the gifts of the feminine is that we actually have a relationship in our bodies with our womb space, with the unconscious, which is AKA the mystery. The mystery, everything that we can't see, we can't know, we don't know. The feminine has a particular relationship with that. So when we restore ourselves to our high priestess, when we restore ourselves to the archetypes, to the sacred feminine archetypes that are coded inside of us, and we live them through our unique template, then we remember something. We get connected to a vast lineage of sisters. The sisters who survived for whatever reason, and this is what Claire said, contorted ourselves to survive. That's our lineage. That's why, that's our DNA that came forward. And we have to undo the contortions in our body. And today, day 2, Jeannie Manchester brought through the use of mantra to start to unwind those blocks inside of us. I mean, like, this is the genius that's getting woven in this goddess convergence. I mean, I'm blown away. I don't plan this stuff. I plan like the structure, I plan the people, but I don't know what's going to happen in here. And that's our province. We walk through the mystery. So if any way you've been terrified of the unknown, this is your opportunity to embrace it in a different way, a totally different way. That you actually are built for the unknown, that you have superpowers inside the unknown. That's how I'm taking it, because otherwise, to our logical linear brain, it's scary. So Claire Dubois also presenced when we let go of what we are not. And this is a huge theme for Pisces retrograde, for Saturn retrograde in Pisces. When we let go of what we are not, we make room for her. Those are those archetypal codes that I'm talking about. That's the Shakti energy. That's the goddess energy, whatever you want to name it. It's pure life force animating you and me. That's it. Bam. So that's the price that we pay, right? It's a price that we're paying. We cannot carry the old self into this. And I was saying today that means that there's certain deaths, like, oh, I didn't realize that my career had to go. I thought my career was totally in line, whatever. I didn't realize that my relationship had to go. I thought my relationship was totally tracking. But it turns out it wasn't. And it became revealed to me. That's the energy of this frequency right now. Okay, now there's another thing she said. Now, there's so much she said that it was so epic, but I'm going to just hit the highlights for you. She said that this time has been prophesied by every indigenous culture. They knew about this time. And she said that only that, and this is what came from the prophecies, only that which embraces the feminine way will survive past 2026. And remember, Richard Rudd said, we're here to ascend to the gift frequency of the gene keys in 2027. So we're at a passage, a crossing, a threshold crossing, and let's call in Hecate because she is the goddess of the crossings. And let's get our support for the crossings, because humanity, the way that it's living in its masculine, wounded, patriarchal way, will not survive. It can't. It's so stupid. It can't. I don't mean that people are stupid, but the system that literally denies the feminine, denies sustainability, denies our interconnectivity. I mean, there's nothing in nature that shows us that kind of energy lives. And Claire, being a tree woman, was talking about the forest and the trees. And so we have become incredibly unconscious and ignorant And we are waking up. And so as we wake up, we bring in the feminine, which means we must bring in the feminine principles. Now, we had 4 years to do that. We've been doing that since 2020 in a big way. When the feminine came through, my participation was the Divine Feminine Summit, activating these codes. And we're like, yeah. Now, guess what? Because Saturn has been in Pisces and it's about to go retrograde, that has said, okay, now I want you to walk it. It's responsibility time. Now your business has to look like it. Now your life has to look like it. Now your career has to look like it. Your relationships have to look like it. The way that you live has to look like it. Like, are you living like a lone wolf, or are you living in community? I mean, I've been asking myself that question. I do have a strong community, and there's something in me going, oh my gosh, I need to live with other people on land with other people who know how to grow food, who can be a source of nourishment in very, very, very difficult times. So if that's where we're headed, and every indicator is such that we are headed there, we need to trust the mother. Because when we trust the mother, she knows what she's doing. She knows how to course correct, right? She's been around for, however long she's been around. She's been around way longer than we have. We're her children. Yeah. And it's funny, right? As kids do, kids go to college and then what do they say? Like, I did this to my parents. I know more than you do now. And we are her kids and we're saying, oh, we're going to go to Mars. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to go to Mars. We're going to do all these things, mother, because it's so beyond you. We're going to go beyond this organic carbon-based life. Ugh, that's so boring. We're bringing in AI. And that's part of evolution. And at the same time, our blood, our bones, the fluids in our body, everything is based on the mother. So I think that this is a deeply positive message in the middle of, humanity's existential crisis, really. So the other concept that came through on the first day of Goddess Convergence was that we need to be receiving as much as we're giving. So we can do receiving practices. You don't have to be receiving from other people. You can receive sunshine from the sun. It's an attitude of openness and receiving. And it's also got humility baked into it, right? Because, you're not the one powering the sun. The sun is powering the sun. So you get to receive the benefits of the sun. The other thing Claire mentioned is that we are designed to be the tuning forks of the cosmos. That's the feminine. The feminine is that. Now, this Pisces retrograde also, guess who else is going retrograde shortly thereafter? Neptune. Neptune is the cosmos. It's the higher octave of love going retrograde. So that's an outer planet, but we've got big planets that are going retrograde, and it's starting a whole string of planets going retrograde. So we're moving to the second half of the year in a different frequency. But this is good news because there's a lot to integrate, and I'm sharing a lot of really intense, heavy stuff with this sense of activation, like it's time. She also said, Earth is ascending and taking us with her. Nature is helping us undo what we are not. So I don't know about you, but that provides such a inner restful context for me that instead of resisting the letting go, and I've been talking to people in all aspects of life about the things that are being let go of in their life, they're releasing, dying, changing. The first response is always blaming ourselves. I must be doing it wrong. I knew better. I should have done it this way. And, if we were like analyzing and critiquing, there are those things, right? But in some way, we have to really get that we're part of a movement, like a zeitgeist. It's part of an energy pulse that is unraveling. And sometimes even let's use an example because I love entrepreneurialism. Even if you are in a business that has been amazing, that it does transformative things, you may come to the end and And you don't even know that you're at the end. You just know that things are not working and it's harder and it's a push. And then when you check in, there are some words that you're hearing yourself say that you can't even believe you heard yourself say. Like, seriously, like you could be saying sabbatical, retirement, um, a complete shift in purpose or in methodology, how I will deliver it. And it could be scary because your whole, let's say, livelihood is based upon it. So these are big things. I mean, that could be exactly the thing happening in your relationships. Um, there's a lot of letting go in this container of the Saturn retrograde. It's also squaring Jupiter, so we might have this like feeling like we have all these plans and ideas, and then our embodiment is a no. Our mind is a yes, and our embodiment is a no. Okay, that's hard, and just know that that may happen because of the Gemini mind and Jupiter expanding that mind. So you may have a lot of creativity flowing through, but it is not for now if your body isn't involved. These are huge things. This is all coming through goddess convergence. I'm overlaying and weaving in the astrology because it's just on point. So the other thing, I said sisterhood 3.0, and I'm going to elaborate a minute on that. And that is that when we use the analogy of the trees and how the trees are interconnected through the mycelia, and the mycelium they want the flourishing of the entire forest, and the trees want the flourishing. In fact, if you read The Hidden Life of Trees, or it's The Secret Life of Trees, something like that, like one tree can feed another tree through its root systems. It's pretty incredible. They're sentient. They know. I've had a practice recently. I don't know how I started it, but I was walking down the street and there's this beautiful tree that it's the kind that the koala bears eat. And they're not bears, I guess. The koalas eat. And we have them all around Southern California. Well, I started to place my whole body on that tree. It's very smooth. And so it was kind of inviting. And I would feel and I do feel when I do it, every time I do it. I've tested it so many times. I put my back against it. I just put my forehead. I put my whole body. I feel an energetic shift. Trees are sentient, and you can really lean into them for support to recalibrate to the Schumann resonance, to the resonance of nature, which is slower than our minds, but in tune, and there's no burnout in that. You can also receive downloads. But the trees are an integral part of the system. And the trees themselves want the flourishing of the whole forest. And that's the metaphor for the sisterhood. We now are moving from an I space to a we space. And I knew that I don't know, 6 months ago or something, when I realized that the Evolving Sisters Network membership had itself moved from an I space to a we space. And now the members are showing up inside of the container giving because they're in the frequency of the whole rather than the frequency of just their individual selves. Do you get that? This is huge. This is huge. And the Gene Keys talks about this, that we are becoming one. Spirituality talks about us becoming one. The trajectory of worldviews, included and transcended, has unity consciousness. Right now, it's like the highest worldview that's opened up. And yet, I think, we've had views of what does that mean? And what we're seeing, and I love this, is that there's a unity consciousness while we retain our particularity. There's so much to say about that. The Tibetan Book of the Dead brings that through. Anita Morjani's Dying to Be Me brings that through. There's just lots of different places where it's clear we're maintaining a particularity, like our soul has a blueprint, a form to it. I believe Yeshua in the Gnostic Gospels called it an archetype, analog and archetype. We are the analog, and we are aligning with our archetype, which is that pure form of who we are that is in conversation. It's not static, it's in conversation with us here and now. So I'm just kind of weaving together a lot of things to help you see where we're at right now. And this Saturn in Pisces is really going to be about some letting go. I'm going to tune into that for a second and then end this transmission. We'll do another transmission next week for the energies of next week and then also for July. But I think it's worth calling forward what's been happening inside of my container of the goddess convergence, because it affects everyone. It affects all divine women, divine feminine women and men. Okay, so yeah, what we're letting go of is the things that have drained our energy, the things that have completion, maybe expiration dates on them, even if we didn't know that they had expiration dates on them. Yeah, it's so much. You know, I have this placement of Saturn and Pisces. I'm in my second Saturn return. So there was a moment when I was going like, oh, I just can't even take this whole Saturn thing on, honestly. But I'm choosing to take it on in a different way. I'm choosing to mine a gold from it and really let that pull me forward rather than whatever narratives that traditional astrologers have around Saturn retrograde in Pisces. But it's going retrograde at 19 degrees on June 29th at noon Pacific, and it'll be there for a while, I believe until mid-November. And then July 2nd, Neptune goes retrograde. It is a slowing down, it is a pause, but it's really like I'm saying, seeing an unwinding. This is that part when I was talking about the undoing. We are in a time of the great undoing. This is what Saturn in Pisces is meant to do. So there are things that are completed, that are unraveling, that need to be released. We're going to go into a new moon. We already had our full moon and we'll have another full moon in Capricorn. Thank goddess. We've got some earth energy holding down all this water. And then we're going to go into Leo. So it will be an interesting shift. It's a shift into some new energy. But here's the thread. It's a review time to let go of what's draining you, like water drain. You think about all the water signs and Pisces, Neptune. Neptune's also in Pisces. So lots of action in the Pisces area of your chart. And then also the sun is in Cancer. So we got like all this water happening, water emotion. So maybe you're overly emotional at this time and you get to hold space for yourself to move through it and purge. I think tears are super efficient purges. So just let the purging happen. And here's the punchline. The punchline is to set you free. To set you free. I think deep down, that is what our souls want. We want to be free, and we take this lifetime to learn what it feels like to be completely restrained, like spirit in a body is the first constraint. And then all of the conditioning from our culture, from our religion, from our families, layered on top of our soul so that the Shakti energy doesn't flow and we forget who we are. And that's why people are mentally ill, they're sick, they're diseased, they're depressed, they're anxious. All of that stuff is because we have forgotten and lost touch with what? Nature. Nature is the one that reminds us, that knows all of this, that knows everything is a cycle. Everything comes, everything goes. So here is our moment to align back with nature. And it's a great time of surrender. Remember the words: flow, listen, surrender. The other one is trust and trust. And that's what priestesses do. That's what high priestesses do, because we're really not unfamiliar with the mystery. The mystery lives in us. Only our minds are unfamiliar with the mystery. So they're the ones trying to create control and filter out information so that we can be perceived as safe, but we're really not. We're the same. We're all exposed. So it's kind of, the gig's up. What are you going to choose? And at some point, we really have the the choiceless choice of trusting. I mean, what are you going to do? I find that we just go, okay, the pressure is so intense that I don't give up. I simply surrender and I keep moving forward. But once I hit that surrender point, I'm accessing new information because now I'm not trying to control with my mind or push or resist or say things shouldn't be this way or go into victim consciousness. That's a big one for Pisces on the shadow side. So, this is a call to action to embrace the trust, to embrace the mystery, and to use it as a superpower. Because here's the thing, I'm going to leave you with this: July 1, 2, and 3, not going to be easy times. There's some intensity, and they're only easy if you get alongside of it, right? So, if we resist, not so easy. But maybe we're going to hear some no's. We're going to have some obstacles. We're going to get stonewalled in something. We're going to maybe even get disappointed. But that's not the energy of giving up. There is nothing in this chart that says, hey, when that happens, just say, fuck it and give up. No, it's not there. It doesn't say push and try to push through. That's not there either. What it says is get creative. Tune in. That's how you get creative. Tune in. What else is possible? One of the transmissions in our vault is asking creative questions. The art of beautiful questions is what it's called. And so you tune in and ask a beautiful question. What else is possible right now? What am I not seeing? How can I see with eyes that are different, unveiled? How can I hear and listen with unveiled ears? That's what the moment is calling for. It's very high priestess moment. It's very medial woman, mystic woman. I mean, we've got Neptune, Pisces, Saturn, all mystical stuff. So that's the call to action. Look reality square in the face. Take whatever comes as God, goddess, for you personally, and do not give up. Let it dissolve the things that you really didn't want to do anyway that were draining your energy, and let it fuel your fire for the things that you know you're here to manifest. It's a lot, but you're supported, you're loved, and we're here. The sisterhood is here. We are 3.0ing it big time. So come and join us. I'll put the membership button below too. It's like hardly anything to come in and just be with the sisters. It's a huge, beautiful, bounteous heart inside the Evolving Sisters Network membership. And so sending you lots and lots of love during this time. May we rise. May we rise.